You know what most people never realize? That silence, true, intentional silence, is not weakness. It's power. Because when you stop explaining yourself to everyone, when you stop chasing validation, approval, and attention, something incredible happens. You start hearing your own voice again. We live in a world that constantly screams, be seen, be loud, be noticed. But here's the truth. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Real strength is quiet. It's calm. It's centered. When you focus on yourself, you stop bleeding energy into things that don't matter. You stop reacting to noise, drama, and negativity. You start investing in something far more important, you. And at first, it feels lonely. People notice you pulling back. They'll wonder, what happened? Why are you so quiet? Let them wonder, because while they're talking, you're transforming. See, silence is where growth happens. It's in those quiet moments that you learn who you really are. You start to see the patterns, who supports you, who drains you, what deserves your energy, and what doesn't. When you focus inward, the external world starts to adjust itself around you, not because the world changed, but because you did. You become grounded, centered. You no longer chase. You attract. Everything starts to fall into place when you stop forcing it. You don't have to beg for attention. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. You become the kind of person who naturally draws respect quietly, confidently, without words. So the next time you feel the urge to prove something, pause, ask yourself, what if I just stayed silent? What if I focused on me instead? That silence. It's not empty, it's full of answers. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you're not ignoring the world, you're mastering it. And that's when everything starts to fall into place. Silence is power, not weakness. Most people misunderstand silence. They think it means you have nothing to say, that you've given up, or that you're afraid to speak. But silence is not the absence of strength. It's the presence of control. It's choosing not to react when you could, not to explain when you don't have to, not to fight battles that aren't worth your energy. It's a decision to conserve power instead of wasting it. And that kind of control is something only strong people can master. When you stay silent, you're not retreating, you're observing. You start to see things more clearly. You notice people's behavior, their intentions, their patterns. You hear what's being said between the words, in the tone, in the pauses. Most people talk so much they miss the truth sitting quietly right in front of them. But when you're silent, your awareness sharpens. You become a student of human nature. You learn who respects your quiet and who feels threatened by it. You learn that silence reveals more than speech ever can. True silence isn't passive, it's strategic. Think of it like holding your fire. You don't need to react to every insult, rumor, or provocation. You don't have to prove your worth through noise. You already know your value, and that's why you can stay calm. Power isn't in the person who yells the loudest. It's in the one who doesn't flinch. The world loves to test your composure. People will try to pull you into chaos, arguments, emotional traps. But when you stay silent, you take that power away. You don't feed the chaos. You show that your peace can't be disturbed. Silence teaches discipline. It shows you how to respond, not react. When something or someone pushes your buttons, silence gives you space to process before you speak. That's where wisdom lives, in the pause. It's in that pause you regain control of your emotions. You decide whether something deserves your response or not. You learn that not every situation needs your voice, and not every person deserves your energy. There's freedom in that realization, the freedom of not being controlled by circumstances or people. You also start realizing how much strength it takes to say nothing. It's easy to argue, easy to defend yourself, easy to fight back, but it takes immense strength to stay silent when your ego wants to scream, because silence isn't about weakness. It's about understanding that reaction doesn't equal resolution. You can't solve every misunderstanding by talking it out. Sometimes silence speaks louder. It says, I'm not playing your game. It says, I've outgrown this. It says, I know who I am and I don't need to prove it. Silence also protects your energy. Think about how much time and emotion people waste on meaningless conversations, on gossip, on arguments that lead nowhere. Every time you react, you give away a little piece of your power. Every time you defend yourself unnecessarily, you drain your focus. But silence keeps your energy contained. It's like closing a door to noise. You start to guard your peace like it's your most valuable possession. Because it is. You realize that what you allow to disturb you controls you. And when you master silence, nothing controls you anymore. Another thing about silence, it makes people uncomfortable. In a world addicted to constant noise and validation, your quiet confidence stands out. People don't know how to handle someone who doesn't need to explain themselves. They'll question you, test you, provoke you, all because your silence makes them confront their own insecurity. But that's not your problem. You don't owe anyone noise. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world. Silence becomes your boundary, your filter, your armor. There's also a deep peace that comes with silence. When you stop feeling the need to defend yourself, life gets lighter. You stop chasing people's approval or explanations that won't be understood anyway. You stop performing. You start existing with purpose. You realize that your value isn't up for debate and your path doesn't need validation. In that peace, your mind clears. You make better decisions. You think with clarity instead of emotion. That's where your strength multiplies. When your thoughts are sharp and your reactions are measured. Silence also creates mystery, and mystery is magnetic. When you don't constantly reveal everything you think or feel, you become unpredictable, and that's powerful. People respect what they can't read easily. They wonder what you're thinking, what you'll do next, why you're so calm. They sense something deeper in you. Control, discipline, depth. That aura doesn't come from talking. It comes from restraint. It comes from the confidence that you don't need to be understood by everyone. When you stay silent, your actions start speaking for you. You don't need to announce your plans, your dreams, or your progress. You just move in silence and let results do the talking. That's how real success works. It doesn't make noise, it makes impact. Every time you achieve something without broadcasting it, you build a quiet legacy. You earn respect not through words, but through consistency and results. People will notice, even if you never say a word. And there's one more layer to silence. It teaches you to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. When the world quiets down, you start hearing your intuition again. You reconnect with that inner voice that knows what's right for you. It's been drowned out by noise, by opinions, by distractions. But in silence, it returns. It tells you what to pursue, what to release, who to trust, and what to walk away from. That's the voice that leads you to peace, purpose, and power. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of strength. It's knowing that your worth isn't tied to words. It's the art of mastering your reactions, conserving your energy, and choosing calm over chaos. It's not that you can't speak. It's that you don't need to. Because when you truly understand your power, silence becomes your loudest statement. Focus on yourself and the world aligns around you. Most people spend their lives trying to control everything outside of them, people. Situations, outcomes, opinions, they chase approval, chase relationships, chase success, and then wonder why they always feel drained. But the truth is, the more you chase the world, the more it runs from you. The moment you stop and turn that energy inward, everything begins to shift. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's essential. It's the foundation of strength, peace, and clarity. Because when you build yourself, you stop needing to beg for what's already yours. When you focus on yourself, you start noticing how much energy you've been wasting trying to fix or impress others. You start asking better questions. What do I actually want? What do I need to heal? What am I giving energy to that doesn't give anything back? Those questions change everything. They pull you away from distraction and push you into purpose. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable, and instead, you master the only thing you ever could, yourself. That's when life begins to align in ways you never imagined. The world has a strange way of mirroring your inner state. When you're chaotic inside, your environment reflects that chaos. When you're at peace, things around you start calming down. People treat you differently. Opportunities flow naturally, not because the world suddenly changed, but because your energy did. You attract what you are. You don't get what you want by chasing it. You get it by becoming it. When you focus on your own growth, your vibration rises, and the things that belong to you start finding their way into your life. Focusing on yourself means taking responsibility. It means looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not going to wait for anyone to save me, fix me, or make me happy. You stop blaming others for your pain, and you start learning from it. You realize that your power begins the moment you stop pointing fingers and start asking, what can I do differently? Growth begins in that question. It's uncomfortable, but it's real. It's where maturity lives, in the ability to take ownership of your own path. When you make yourself the focus, you start building habits that support your peace. You begin to protect your time like it's gold. You say no without guilt. You walk away from people who drain you without explaining yourself. You stop overextending. You stop over-explaining. You stop being the hero in other people's stories while abandoning your own, because you finally understand that your energy is your most valuable asset. If you don't manage it wisely, others will. As you focus on yourself, clarity replaces confusion. You begin to see who you really are without all the noise. You learn your strengths, your weaknesses, your triggers, your values. You learn how to calm your mind, how to control your emotions, how to move with intention instead of reaction. You stop getting lost in temporary feelings and start building permanent strength. You realize that peace isn't found in people or possessions. It's built inside through discipline, awareness, and self-respect. And something powerful happens when you stop chasing. The right people start to appear. The right opportunities start to unfold. You're no longer forcing things to happen because you're aligned with who you are and what you stand for. You stop begging for recognition and start commanding respect through your presence. You no longer chase energy that doesn't match yours. You become a magnet for what's meant for you. That's alignment. Not control, not luck, but alignment. When you focus on yourself, you also stop taking everything personally. You start seeing that people's behavior says more about them than it does about you. Their reactions, their opinions, their judgments, none of that defines your worth. You stop trying to prove anything. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop overthinking every small thing someone said, because when you know who you are outside, noise loses its volume. You start moving from a place of calm, not chaos. That's when your power becomes untouchable. The more you focus inward, the more you realize that peace doesn't mean nothing happens. It means nothing shakes you. Life still throws challenges your way, but you handle them differently. You no longer react with panic, you respond with clarity. You no longer seek revenge, you seek understanding. You no longer break down when things go wrong, you adapt and rebuild. That strength comes from within, and it's built every single day you choose to focus on your own growth instead of external noise. People will misunderstand you when you start focusing on yourself. They'll call you distant, selfish, cold, but they're reacting to your boundaries. They were used to you being available for everything but yourself. Don't let that guilt pull you back, because the people who truly value you will respect your evolution. They'll see that focusing on yourself isn't rejection, it's self-preservation. And as you grow, you'll inspire others to do the same. Focusing on yourself also means mastering your thoughts, because your mind creates your reality. You start realizing that not every thought deserves your belief. You learn to separate your fears from your truth, your doubts from your potential. You start feeding your mind with things that make you stronger, not weaker. You stop replaying old stories of pain and start writing new ones of power. You learn that mental discipline is the difference between peace and chaos, between success and stagnation. And when your focus is on yourself, comparison fades. You stop measuring your progress by someone else's timeline. You understand that everyone's path is different and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You start celebrating your small wins because you know they're part of something bigger. You become patient with yourself. You start trusting the process. That's what alignment looks like when you're no longer at war with your own journey. It's not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about becoming so grounded in who you are that nothing outside of you can throw you off balance. You stop chasing validation because you validate yourself. You stop needing closure because you give it to yourself. You stop waiting for peace because you create it inside you. That's when the world starts to align, when you finally do. Because when you focus on yourself, your energy shifts, your mindset sharpens, and your path clears. You stop forcing outcomes, and life starts moving in your favor. You stop pushing against resistance, and things begin to flow. You don't chase, you attract. You don't demand, you deserve. You don't talk about becoming better. You live it quietly every single day. Growth happens in quiet, not in noise. The world teaches you to move fast, to stay busy, to always be seen doing something. You're told that success belongs to the loud, the visible, the constantly moving. But that's a lie that keeps most people exhausted and distracted. Real growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in silence. It happens when no one is watching, when you're sitting alone with your thoughts, when you're uncomfortable, but still choosing to keep going. That's where transformation begins. Not in noise, not in chaos, but in quiet persistence. The quiet moments are where you learn the truth about yourself. It's easy to appear confident when people are clapping, when the room is full of noise, when validation surrounds you. But who are you when it's just you? When there's no audience, no praise, no reassurance, that's where your real character is built. Silence forces you to face yourself. It strips away distraction. It asks hard questions. What do I really want? What am I avoiding? What needs to change? And those questions, though uncomfortable, are what create real growth. Noise hides weakness. Quiet exposes it. But exposure is necessary. You can't heal what you won't face. You can't grow through what you won't acknowledge. That's why the people who embrace silence evolve the fastest. They're willing to sit with their discomfort, to understand it, to learn from it. While others run from their pain, they use it as fuel. They're not afraid of stillness because they know growth requires space, patience, and reflection. You don't evolve when you're constantly reacting. You evolve when you pause, reflect, and redirect. In quiet, you start to understand your emotions instead of being controlled by them. You start to recognize patterns, the things that trigger you, the situations that drain you, the people that keep you small. You begin to see clearly what you used to ignore. Growth is never about adding more. It's about shedding what no longer fits, and silence helps you do that. It teaches you to listen, not to the world, but to yourself. It's in that listening that you start becoming the person you were meant to be. The quiet path is often lonely, but that loneliness has purpose. When you start pulling back from the noise, you lose certain people. You stop fitting into old circles. You stop caring about meaningless validation. That's not isolation. That's elevation. You're not losing connection. You're making room for alignment. You start attracting people and opportunities that match your new level of peace. You start walking lighter because you're no longer carrying what doesn't belong to you. Growth always demands separation before transformation. Noise gives you distraction. Silence gives you direction. The world glorifies movement, but it's not movement that changes your life. It's intention. You can move fast and go nowhere. But when you move from a place of reflection and self-awareness, every step matters. Silence gives you that clarity. It slows you down enough to notice the signs, to make deliberate choices instead of emotional ones. You learn that not every opportunity is for you, not every path leads forward, and not every person should walk beside you. In silence, you become your own teacher. You learn how to motivate yourself when no one is cheering. You learn how to comfort yourself when things fall apart. You learn how to keep promises to yourself without needing external accountability. That's self-mastery. The art of being disciplined without noise, committed without applause, consistent without reward. Growth that lasts isn't built on motivation. It's built on quiet discipline. The world will never see those moments, the early mornings, the late nights, the quiet choices that shape who you become. But those are the moments that define everything. When you embrace quiet, you start appreciating patience. You stop rushing the process. You understand that growth takes time, that it's not supposed to be instant or easy. You realize that the seed doesn't bloom the moment it's planted. It grows in the dark, unseen, roots spreading deep before anything appears above ground. That's how your growth works too. The quiet phases are not punishment. They're preparation. You're building strength that will sustain you when it's time to rise. But you can't skip the quiet. You can't rush it. You have to trust it. The problem is that silence makes people uneasy. They associate stillness with stagnation. But stillness is not the same as being stuck. Stillness is where alignment happens. It's where you stop doing for the sake of doing and start acting from a place of purpose. You learn that slowing down doesn't mean you've lost momentum. It means you're gathering energy for something greater. Noise tells you to prove yourself. Silence tells you to know yourself. And knowing yourself is far more powerful than proving anything to anyone. Growth in quiet also builds humility. You realize how small your ego becomes when you're not constantly feeding it with attention or validation. You start seeing success differently, not as something you show off, but something you embody. You stop needing to talk about your plans because your results will eventually speak louder than words. You stop announcing your progress because you understand that energy spent showing is energy taken from growing. Silence makes you efficient. It directs your focus inward where real power is built. And the quiet seasons of your life are where resilience is born. When no one's watching, when support is gone, when you have to figure things out alone, that's where toughness forms. It's where you learn that you can survive without applause. It's where you stop depending on motivation and start building discipline. Those silent battles you fight with yourself are what prepare you for everything that comes later. You learn to be your own strength, your own voice, your own guide. The truth is, growth that comes from noise fades quickly. It's shallow, performative, and dependent on outside energy, but growth that comes from quiet endures. It's deep, grounded, and unshakable. It's built on solitude, reflection, and perseverance. You can always tell the difference. People who grow in noise need validation to keep going, but those who grow in quiet move with quiet confidence. They don't need to prove who they are. They already know. So while everyone else is chasing attention, you can choose peace. While they shout to be heard, you can listen to understand. While they run from silence, you can walk through it. Because that quiet space you once feared becomes your greatest advantage. It's where your mind strengthens, your vision clears, and your spirit matures. It's where you outgrow the version of yourself that depended on noise and become the one who commands peace.